Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna. Today we are beginning Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 6, Chapter 3. This chapter is entitled Yamaraj Instructs His Messengers. So first I'll read Srila Prabhupada's introduction to the chapter. As related in this chapter, the Yamadutas approached Yamaraj, who very exhaustively explained Bhagavad Dharma, the religious principle of devotional service. Yamaraj thus satisfied the Yamadutas, who had been very disappointed. Yamaraj said, although Ajamil was calling for his son, he chanted the holy name of the Lord, Narayan, and simply by a glimpse of the chanting of the holy name, he immediately achieved the association of Lord Vishnu's order carriers, who saved him from your attempt to arrest him. This is quite all right. It is a fact that even a chronically sinful person who chants the holy name of the Lord, although not completely without offenses, does not take another material birth. By chanting the holy name of the Lord, Ajamil had met 4 order carriers of Lord Vishnu. They were very beautiful and had quickly come to rescue him. Yamaraj now described them. Quote, the Vishnu Dutas are all pure devotees of the Lord, the Supreme Person, in regard to the creation, maintenance, and annihilation of this cosmic manifestation. Neither King Indra, Varuna, Shiva, Brahma, the 7 rishis, nor I myself can understand the transcendental activities of the Supreme Lord, who is self-sufficient and beyond the reach of the material senses. With material senses, no one can attain enlightenment about him. The Lord, the master of the illusory energy, possesses transcendental qualities for the good fortune of everyone, and his devotees are also qualified in that way. The devotees, concerned only with rescuing the fallen souls from this material world, apparently take birth in different places in the material world just to save the conditioned souls. If one is somewhat interested in spiritual life, the devotees of the Lord protect him in many ways. Yamaraj continued, the essence of Sanatana Dharma, or eternal religion, is extremely confidential. No one but the Lord himself can deliver that confidential religious system to human society. It is by the mercy of the Lord that the transcendental system of religion can be understood by his pure devotees, and specifically by 12 Mahajanas, Lord Brahma, Narada Muni, Lord Shiva, the Kumaras, Kapila, Manu, Prahlad, Janaka, Bhishma, Bali, Shukadeva Goswami, and me. Other learned scholars, headed by Jaimini, are almost always covered by illusory energy, and therefore they are more or less attracted by the flowery language of the 3 Vedas, namely Rig, Yajur, and Sama, which are called Trayi. Instead of becoming pure devotees, people captivated by the flowery words of these 3 Vedas are interested in the Vedic ritualistic ceremonies. They cannot understand the glories of chanting the holy name of the Lord. Intelligent persons, however, take the devotional service of the Lord. When they chant the holy name of the Lord without offenses, they are no longer subject to my rulings. If by chance they commit some sinful act, they are protected by the holy name of the Lord, because that is where their interest lies. The 4 weapons of the Lord, namely the club and the Sudarshan Chakra, the 4 weapons of the Lord, especially the club and the Sudarshan Chakra, always protect the devotees. One who chants, hears, or remembers the holy name of the Lord without duplicity, or who prays or offers obeisances to the Lord, becomes perfect, whereas a learned person may be called to hell if he is bereft of devotional service. End of quote. After Yamaraj thus described the glories of the Lord and his devotees, Shukadeva Goswami further explained the potency of chanting the holy name and the futility of performing Vedic ritualistic ceremonies and pious activities for atonement. So, today, verse 4 has been written on the board. So first I'll read verses 1 to 3. Sri Rajavacha nisamya deva svabato pavarnitam pratyaha kimtan api dharma raja evam hatagyo vihatan murarer naide shikair yasya vashe janoyam. King Parikshit said, O my Lord, O Shukadeva Goswami, Yamaraj is the controller of all living entities in terms of their religious and irreligious activities, but his order has been foiled. When his servants the Yamadutas, his order had been foiled. When his servants the Yamadutas informed him of their defeat by the Vishnu Dutas who had stopped them from arresting Ajamila, what did he reply? Purport, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that although the statements of the Yamadutas were fully upheld by Vedic principles, the statements of the Vishnu Dutas were triumphant. This was confirmed by Yamaraj himself. Text 2. Yamasya devasya nadanda banga kutascha shruta purva asit etan mune vrishchati loka sangshayam nahi tvadanya iti me vinishchitam. Translation, O great sage, never before has it been heard anywhere that an order from Yamaraj has been baffled. Therefore, I think that people will have doubts about this, that no one but you can eradicate. Since that is my firm conviction, kindly explain the reasons for these events. Text 3. Shri Shuka Uvacha Bhagavat Purushai Rajan Yam Ya Prati Hatodhyama Patim Vigyapayam Asur Yamang Sangyamani Patim. Sri Sukadeva Goswami replied, My dear king, when the order carriers of Yamaraj were baffled and defeated by the order carriers of Vishnu, they approached their master, the controller of Samyamani Puri and master of sinful persons, to tell him of this incident. So now, this verse, number 4. Yamaduta Uchu Kati Santiya Shastaro Jiva Lokasya Prabhu Trividyam Kurvata Karma Palabi Vyakti Hetava Yamaduta Uchu Kati Santiya Shastaro Jiva Lokasya Prabhu Trividyam Kurvata Karma Palabi Vyakti Etava Yamaduta Uchu Kati Santiya Shastaro Jiva Lokasya Prabhu Trividyam Kurvata Karma Palabi Vyakti Hetava.
Kati Samkhihasastaro Jivalokasya Vai Prabho Traividyam Kurvata Karma Alavivyakti Etavaha Yamaduta Uchu Shanti Hashastaro Jivalokasya Vai Prabho Traividyam Kurvata Karma Alavivyakti Etavaha
Ladies, please. Yamaduta Uchu, the order carriers of Yamaraj said, Kati, how many? Santi, are there? Iha, in this world. Shastara, controllers or rulers. Jivalokasya, of this material world. Vai, indeed. Prabho, O Master. Traividyam, under the three modes of material nature. Kurvataha, performing. Karma, activity. Phala, of the results. Abhivyakti, of the manifestation. Hetavaha, causes. Translation, the Yamadutas said, Our dear Lord, how many controllers or rulers are there in this material world? How many causes are responsible for manifesting the various results of activities performed under the three modes of material nature? Sattvaguna, Rajaguna, and Tamaguna. Purport. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that the Yamadutas, the order carriers of Yamaraj, were so disappointed that they asked their master, almost in great anger, whether there were many masters other than him. Furthermore, because the Yamadutas had been defeated and their master could not protect them, they were inclined to say that there was no need to serve such a master. If a servant cannot carry out the orders of the master without being defeated, what is the use of serving such a powerless master? Yamaduta Uchu Kati Santiya Sashtaro Jiva Lokasya Vai Prabho Trai Vidyam Kurvata Karma Phala Bhivyakti Hetava. The Yamaduta said, Our dear Lord, how many controllers or rulers are there in this material world? How many causes are responsible for manifesting the various results of activities performed under the three modes of material nature? Sattvaguna, Rajaguna, and Tamaguna. So as Parikshit Maharaj mentions in his question to Sukadeva Goswami, it's, O great sage, never before has it been heard anywhere that an order from Yamaraj has been baffled. So Yamaraj is an extremely powerful demigod, being the Lord of death, He's also called Dharmaraj, so he is the upholder of dharma, religious principles, and he and his team of assistants are responsible for imposing the laws of religious principles upon the conditioned souls in this material world. Srila Prabhupada mentions that if people don't accept Krishna's instructions, if they don't listen to Krishna and they don't follow his instructions, and if they don't believe in the Supreme Lord, then Lord comes to them in the form of death. So that is Yamaraj, who is empowered in that way by Krishna to deal with the rebellious conditioned souls in the material world, those who disobey the instructions of the Lord. Those who follow the instructions of the Lord, they are devotees. And because they're always engaged in chanting the holy names of the Lord and engaged in a devotional service of the Lord, because they remember the Lord constantly, therefore the order carriers of Yamaraj do not go near them at the time of death. Rather, the Lord personally takes care of them. Those who are sufficiently pure, sufficiently Krishna conscious, may be taken back to the spiritual world. Usually they would be by the Lord, although sometimes he may send them again to the material world for preaching Krishna consciousness and uplifting the conditioned souls. But even if that is the case, such persons, such devotees, are fully situated on a transcendental platform. They will generally take birth in devotee families, just like Srila Prabhupada mentioned in his own case and in the case of his spiritual master, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, that they took birth in a Vaishnava families. As we know, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was a son of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, who is a great Vaishnavacharya in our Sampradaya. And he had prayed to the Lord to send a ray of Vishnu as his son to assist him in carrying on the mission of Lord Chaitanya in preaching Krishna consciousness. And the Lord kindly obliged by sending such a personality who was named Bimal Prasad after his birth, and later became Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada. A very exalted personality. And from childhood he was trained in Vaishnava philosophy, Vaishnava etiquette. He was spontaneously attracted to Krishna consciousness. I think by age of 7 or so, he knew the Bhagavad Gita by heart. So he was a very exalted and expert personality, you see. No question of him taking birth under the influence of the modes of material nature. He was always on a transcendental platform. Our Srila Prabhupada, he appeared also in a Vaishnava family. His father was Gaur Mohan Dey, and his father also taught him about Krishna consciousness right from childhood. Whole life, he took Krishna prasadam from early childhood. His father got him small deities, Radha Krishna deities, so he would play with his friends by making mud cakes to offer to those deities. His father built him a small Rath Yatra cart, so he would have the Rath Yatra festival with his friends. Father bought him a mridanga, taught him to play mridanga, taught him Vaishnav bhajans. There was a temple of Shri Radha Govinda near their home, so father and mother used to take him there for darshan. So right from childhood he was absorbed in Krishna consciousness. So these are special personalities who the Lord has sent to give Krishna consciousness to the fallen soul. They have willingly accepted that service. They're ready to do whatever the Lord instructs. Go to the spiritual world and serve Him there, or come to the material world and serve Him here. Bhaktivinoda Thakur once prayed, "My Lord, I don't mind to take birth again in the material world, even as an insect, but please let it be in the home of a devotee." So he's he's fully surrendered, ready to do whatever the Lord bids, but he does have that condition, if you like, but it's not a material condition, it's a spiritual condition. Let it be in the home of devotees. Let me have the association of devotees. I may get some crumbs of prasadam. I can hear them glorifying the Lord. So even if in a body of an insect, a person can remain Krishna conscious. Just like Bharat Maharaj, he, due to attachment for a deer, had to take birth as a deer in his next life. But he remembered his previous life as Bharat Maharaj, who was a great devotee, as we know. So therefore he stayed near the ashram of some great devotees, and he would listen to them chanting the holy names and glorifying Krishna, sometimes get remnants of their prasadam. In this way, he remained Krishna conscious even in a deer's body. And consequently, in his next life, again, he became a great devotee, Jara Bharat, very advanced devotee, who gives very powerful instructions to the king Maharaj Rahugana. These are recorded in the Srimad Bhagavatam 5th canto. So again, that's an example of a great personality who is, sent by the Lord to perform the service of enlightening the conditioned souls. But generally, the devotees, they go back home, back to Godhead, if they remember Krishna. Once, Srila Prabhupada, I don't know if I got this exactly correct or not, but once Srila Prabhupada said, you have to be fully Krishna conscious to go back to Godhead. And a devotee asked, well, what if I can't manage to be fully Krishna conscious? And Prabhupada said, well, at least 90%. And a devotee said, what if I can't manage that? He said, at least 80%. And a devotee said, what if I can't manage that? He said, at least 70%. So, in Kali Yuga, Lord Chaitanya is especially merciful. So, he may overlook some faults on the part of devotees if they're, by and large, if they're serious and sincere and trying hard to be Krishna conscious, even they make some mistakes or they not completely 100% Krishna conscious, still the Lord, He may make some, special concession. But of course, we shouldn't count on it. Just like if you're studying for an exam, you try to be prepared 100%. You may not get 100%. You may get, 70, 80, 90, over 70, usually considered a distinction or high distinction. You see, so, but still we don't just try for 70, we should try for 100%. So anyhow, the devotees they're protected by the Lord, and therefore Yamaraj, he doesn't involve himself with them. He's also a great devotee, as we can understand from this chapter in particular. But Yamaraj, he has business with the non-devotees, those who are inimical to the Lord, those who are very materialistic, those who are performing all kinds of sinful activities. So his job is to, his and his assistant's job is to observe their activities, record their activities, and then after that, at the time of death, when that person is leaving his body, these personalities, the Yamadutas, very gruesome personalities, they rip the soul of that sinful person out of his body and bring him to the court of Yamaraj for suitable punishment. And in the 5th canto, there are extensive descriptions of the different kinds of punishment that Yamaraj may mete out to different kinds of sinful persons. So in this way, they have to undergo some preparation in hellish conditions, and then they're put into a suitable body in accordance with their sinful activities. And they may go down to very low species, or they may go down not so far, but still into some lower species, some animal species, some, bird, plant, fish, whatever, insect species. And then gradually, there's a mechanism by which those living entities transmigrate through different species. They gradually come up again to the human form of life. But depending how far down they go, it may take many lifetimes, thousands of lifetimes can take to come back to the human form of life again. The animals and the other lower species are not creating new karma. The karma is created in the human form of life because human being is held responsible. The living entity in human body is held responsible in civilized human society, is held responsible for his activities because there are scriptures which contain laws of God. And if one follows those laws, then he's protected by the Lord. But if one breaks those laws, then he generates karma. The devotee who is engaged in devotional service, his activity is called akarma. There's no karmic reaction. Rather, his activity makes him more and more attached to Krishna, helps him to remember Krishna, not only by chanting the holy names and hearing from the scriptures does he remember Krishna, but also through his very activity of devotional service, he also remembers Krishna. That activity is considered non-different from Krishna and from chanting the holy names. But if a living being is not engaged in such activities, then he generates karma. But the devotee, he generates no karma. So there are two kinds, broadly speaking, that is, of karma. There is karma or punya karma, which is activity which is in accordance with scriptures but not devotional service. There are many other scriptures the Vedas and so many other scriptures which give laws of God. And the Vedas, for example, 4 Vedas are more focused on pleasing the demigods, so that they'll give some blessings for activities in the material world. So it is pious material activity. But it creates karma, it creates good karma, which also binds one to the material world. And a person who completely disregards the scriptures, then his activity is called vikarma. It is impious activity, it is sinful activity. Then, so pap, punya and pap, pious and sinful activity. So that sinful activity, of course, creates bad karma, and a person, as a result, he has to go down into lower species or lower planet like that, take birth in a lower position. But gradually, as he mentioned, then he will work off that karma as he transmigrates through different species and come again to the human form of life, where he gets a chance again to hear religious and spiritual instruction and advance in spiritual life. So, although the Vedas, recommend many kinds of punya karma, Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, he advises against that path. He said, don't let your mind become attracted by the flowery language of the Vedas, or men of small intelligence worship the demigods. The fruits are limited and temporary. Or abrahma bhuvanaloka punaravartinavarjana ma mupecha tokontaya punarjanma navidyate. From the highest planet in the material world down to the lowest, all are places of misery, of repeated birth and death. But one who comes back to my abode never takes birth in this material world. So Krishna, in Bhagavad Gita, he is teaching pure devotional service, even advising, put aside, these other instructions that you find in the Vedas. Sarva dharman prityaja mame kam sharanam braja aham tvam sarva papebhyo mokshayishami masuchaha. Now give up all these other varieties of religious activities and just surrender to me. And in return, I will protect you from all sinful reaction. Do not fear. Someone, he may be born in a Hindu family for generations. His forefathers have been worshipping certain demigods. So he may be worried, if I stop that and just take to worship of Krishna and devotional service to Krishna, there may be some bad reaction, some sinful effect. No, Krishna said, don't worry about that. You can give those up, because by surrendering to me, then you'll get my protection. And as he mentions in the Bhagavad Gita, Mata parataram nanyat kinchit asti dhananjaya. There's no truth superior to me. Krishna is a supreme personality of Godhead. So, therefore, one can, with confidence, surrender to Krishna, follow his instructions, even giving up the worship of various demigods. Of course, one should not disrespect the demigods because they are devotees of the Lord. One should show them due respect. Just like we see when Lord Chaitanya, who's non-different from Radha Krishna, non-different from Krishna himself, when he went to South India, he also visited various temples like Meenakshi Devi temple in Madurai, which is a temple of Durga. Meenakshi Devi is a form of Durga. He at Rameshwaram, that is a temple of Lord Shiva. There he worship Lord Shiva, showed his respects in Shiva Kanchi, different places he went, and he showed respect to the demigods since they're devotees of Krishna. But he always absorbed himself in chanting the holy names of Krishna and preaching Krishna consciousness. So we must respect the demigods, but we have to understand their position in relation to Krishna. Actually, the second offense in chanting the holy names is to consider the names of various demigods to be equal to or independent of the name of Lord Vishnu. How does one overcome this offense? One overcomes this offense by proper knowledge, by understanding the respective positions of Krishna, Vishnu, Shiva, Brahma, other demigods. And that's why this chapter is very important, because Yamaraj himself, who is one of the principal demigods, is clearly explaining his subordinate position to Narayan, Vishnu, or Krishna. He is accepted to be a very powerful person, especially his order carriers, his servants. They're very obedient to him, and they don't meet with any difficulty in capturing these sinful conditioned souls and bringing them to Yamaraj. They're so strong, they're so powerful. The conditioned soul might be very frightened, as often happens at the time of death. When he sees these fearsome, gruesome personalities, very frightened, doesn't want to go, but has to go. He's dragged by them to Yamaraj and given a suitable punishment. So therefore the Yamadutas, they think they're very powerful also. Being servants of the most powerful master, they're accustomed to, having their way. So this is very baffling for them, because Ajamil, he performed many sinful activities. Whole life he was, apart from his, childhood and youth, whole rest of his life was engaged in sinful activities. And therefore he, appeared to be definitely a candidate for bringing to Yamaraj. So it was very astonishing for them that these Vishnu Dutas could stop them and protect Ajamil. Ajamil actually, he didn't leave his body at that time. The Vishnu Dutas protected him and he stayed in his body. He wasn't ready to go back to Godhead. He had to improve his consciousness. But he did. It was a great shock, this event. And therefore he became very serious in spiritual practice. He went to Haridwar and there engaged himself in devotional service, absorbed in Krishna consciousness. Then he went back to Godhead. But anyhow, the Yamadutas, being baffled, did the best thing that they could. They went immediately to their master to report this incident and to inquire from him. Because as Prabhupada is citing Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur here in the purport, how the Yamadutas were so disappointed that they asked their master, almost in anger, in great anger, whether there were many masters other than him. And if a servant cannot carry out the orders of his master without being defeated, what's the use of serving such a powerless master? Of course, that's sort of going to extreme. I mean, okay, this is just one case. There are most cases, practically all cases, they could take those sinful persons to Yamaraj, but still this is very astonishing for them. So they were baffled. They needed reassurance. They needed guidance from Yamaraj. So they've put their questions in a appropriate way, and then Yamaraj proceeds in this chapter, as we've read in the introduction. He proceeds to instruct them about the position of the Supreme Lord and his position in relation to the Lord, all our positions in relation to the Lord. We have to know, that actually in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Lord Chaitanya explains the respective positions. I think it's also recorded in the Nectar of Devotion as well, that Krishna, he has 64 transcendental qualities. He's full with all transcendental qualities. And the Vishnu forms, Vishnu Tattva forms, they have 60 of those qualities in full. And Lord Shiva, he has 55 of those qualities in full. And Lord Brahma has 50 of those qualities in full and may have a further 5 partially. And the living entities, they can have up to 50 of those qualities partially. So there's a difference then. And it's important to have at least a basic understanding of the respective position of those important personalities and our, insignificance in relation to them. That's why we have to respect the demigods. They're not just, small conditioned souls, but they're dear servants of the Lord who have been empowered by the Lord for specific functions. And they're directing the universal affairs. This is a very responsible and elevated position, but still they themselves, as we read in various parts of the Shastra and the Bhagavatam, may sometimes also, become affected by the material energy, just like Brahma became illusioned when he thought he could teach Krishna a lesson by stealing the calves and cowherd boys, or Indra, thought he could punish Krishna and the inhabitants of Vrindavan for not performing Indra Yagya by flooding Vrindavan. But as we know in both those cases, Lord Krishna showed his transcendental potency and put them in their places. In the case of Brahma, by producing duplicate boys and calves who went to their homes every day for a year, and the parents didn't even know that these were not their children. In fact, they had more affection because these were special expansions of Krishna, or Krishna lifted Govardhan hill to protect the inhabitants of Vrindavan. So in both cases, Brahma and Indra had to come and surrender to Krishna. Being devotees, they understood their mistakes and therefore humbled themselves, and thus Krishna was pleased upon them, gave his blessings to them. So that is a devotee. Devotee might make mistakes sometime, but a devotee tries to rectify those mistakes by surrendering to Krishna and following the instructions of the Lord. So this chapter, therefore, very important to understand the position of the Lord, the position of the demigods, and get inspiration to take shelter of the Lord and the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord, so as to avoid this danger of being captured by the Yamadutas and condemned by Yamaraj to birth in lower species or lower planets, but rather to have the protection of the Lord and thus be able to go back to Godhead, or at least take birth again as a devotee and continue one's practice of Krishna consciousness in next life. So, Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. Any quick comment or question? Maharaj.
Very quick comment, and then a question which, because we won't have time to discuss, but something we think about perhaps. The comment is just that as many of us know, does this work? Is it working? As many of us know, in Canto 2 of Srimad Bhagavatam, a very similar kind of discussion was a little bit more how should we say, more ecstatic type of discussion between Narada Muni and his father, Lord Brahma. So what to speak of Yamaraj, even Lord Brahma humbly admits he's just a humble servant of his God. The question has to do with collective karma. We talked a lot about karma, and has a lot to do with this section of Bhagavatam. We live at a time in the world, as Thomas Merton, the great late Catholic theologian, points out in the Bhagavad Gita, the endorsement is there, at least in the English Bhagavad Gita, that the world right now can auto-destruct. So it's a unique situation that the Maniyat forces in the world are so they have the ability, and they've had it for many decades now, to wipe out the human race, practically speaking, or many other species as well, all in just a few hours. This is a rather dramatic type of situation. H.G.Prabha has also said that when there's something really cataclysmic, like say a nuclear war, then Durga Devi herself gets into the act. It's not ordinary. So I don't know, maybe this is a little bit of a, I hope you say philosophical speculation, but I suspect that in the level of collective karma, right now, there's also some back and forth going on between Durga Devi, Yamadutas, and Vishnu Dutas. Because ordinarily, so many cows being killed every day, so many abortions are being performed. Ordinarily, you think, finished, is a case closed. Launch, many, many megatons all at once. But because the Sankirtan movement is here, we can just picture the Vishnu Dutas and even Yamaraj himself and even Krishna saying, hold off at least one more day. Because they're going around and they're chanting, Harinam. How do you feel about this?
Yes. Agreed. Agreed. Ekalabi.
The word Shastaro is there in the shloka, and the word I believe it means master or controller. So it's in reference to Yamaraj. The word Shastra to me brings to mind the scriptures. So can you do some relationship? How can we understand the Shastras as being a master or controller?
Well, there's Shastra and Shastra, right? Shastra is scripture, right? And Shastra is a weapon. He's the person who carries out or upholds the instructions of the Shastras, and he's also the person who metes out punishment, a suitable punishment. So the words are all related in that way. Okay, so thank you very much. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki.